We're going to talk about the 26-27 application. Everything that we have put out, Ruben, Howie, has said it's going to open up when? October 1st. It opened yesterday. So we're liars again. It's fine. It's going to be here on October 1st also. So there was beta testing going on, so they've been testing it, and I think it went so well that they just decided, guess what, we're going to open it early. So it is open now. If you have any eager students that are wanting to do it, or you can just hit the ground running on October 1st, okay? So this form, if you want to scan this and just have it on your phone, we will try to have some question and answer time, but in case we don't, and we have some downtime later, Ruben's going to be checking this to kind of feed me some questions as we go along. I'll give you a second for that one. And then if we don't get to them today, we can definitely follow up via email or on their website, on the NMEA website. Okay, we got that? It'll show up later too. So, our training intention, we are going to try to support educators to familiarize yourselves with financial aid and the application process. We draw from our experience, so our expertise. I've been doing this now, this is my 16th year, guys? Yeah, 16th year that we've been doing this. Before this, I worked in colleges, but really in admissions and new student orientation and career services. So when I got into the high school level and they're like, hey, you have to help people with the FAFSA, I'm a nerd and I absolutely love the FAFSA. It's like my jam. So I love to share this with you guys and hopefully help make it easier so that you can then go out and share it with everybody else. We're all about that ripple effect here in our state, and if I can train one of you and you go train a couple others and you get more and more students, then we're going to be able to make our state better. So we acknowledge and support that each student has their own unique lived experience. We heard that from some of the Q&A already, that what if they did this or that, and so and how they perceive and engage with financial aid is also going to be different, and even the question about our political climate and things like that. Now, what do we do and how do we serve it? Every one of them is different, and we're going to talk about a lot of that today through our presentations this afternoon as well. So what I'm going to talk about today is your FSA ID, the FAFSA line by line, and then we're going to talk about a certification that we have created for all of you. So FSA ID is your username and password to get into the system. Any user has to have the FSA ID. It is tied to a social security number. If they do not have a social security number, it does verify identity. But any user, the student or the contributor, has to have one of these. So the student, when we talk about contributors, if our students are dependent, their contributors are going to be at least one parent. If they are married, their contributor might be their spouse. So the contributors do not have to provide financial support. They don't have to contribute to the education. They have to contribute information to the FAFSA. So there are some exceptions to needing a parent. It's under, if they're under legal guardianship, if they are currently a parent themselves, or under foster care, and we'll go through some of that. Parents who have filled out a FAFSA for an older sibling or a twin will use the same FSA ID because it's their ID tied to their identity. So they don't have to set up a new username and password for each kid that they're contributing to on the FAFSA. So real simple, they go to this website, click Get Started, they fill out their personal information. So first name, middle name, last day of birth, is a security number. When I'm working with students, we show what the social security number is. I say, do you have something, a picture of it? Do you actually have the card? Do you actually know the number? We are not guessing here, because if we guess here, then it's never going to work, and it's going to cause frustration, and we're not going to know why. Also, make sure the birth date is correct. I have kids, they're not diagnosed dyslexic, but I feel like after we go through this, I'm like, you flipped all of these numbers around. So please just make sure, reiterate, is that your legal name? Is that your legal first name and last name. And they're like, oh no, on my legal stuff, my name is hyphenated, but when in school, I never use the hyphen. Or it's hyphenated this way, but I actually, legally, it's hyphenated the other way. Has to be their legal name on their Social Security card, so please make sure that they do that. And that goes for parents as well, with the hyphenated names and all of that. So there is the option, I forgot to say, right here where it says, what if I don't have a Social Security number? If they click that, you would say it has some follow-up questions, but then it gives a warning. So some students were saying, oh, I don't have one because they just didn't know it at the time, and then it was taking them down that separate process. So it's giving them a warning now that if you do have a social, you need to do it the other way. But if you don't, then yes, I don't have one, and I need to go through the other process. So this is back to, I did have a social, this is back to everybody. So picking a username, if you type it in and it turns red, it means it's already taken, so pick something else, add some numbers at the end. Email address, it cannot be an email address that somebody else already used for their FSA ID. So if you've got a family email address and you can't use it for mom and dad or the kid, they have to have their own, so they can set up a Gmail account or something like that for free. And then password just has to have uppercase, lowercase number, and be at least 8 characters. It cannot have their birth date. It cannot have their name or their Social Security number in their password. So if you're getting like errors that the passwords aren't working, that is most of the time what it is. Please have them write this down or save it. We only use our FSA IDs once a year, and I know when I log in to try to see what it looks like this year, again, I forget it, and I'm on my 10th iteration of what that password was, because I have to reset it all the time, and you can't use one that you've used in the past. So this is just the intro page. It'll ask mailing address and phone number. They can choose how to receive required communication also. The phone number, we do want them to put their phone number in and put, yes, I agree to using it for account access. They've gone to that 2-step verification now. So whenever they do anything with the FAFSA, it's going to send them a code. I don't know what company gets paid to send those codes out, but they are making bank. So the text is faster than the email. If anybody has experienced either one, the email you have to sit there and make small talk and like ask how their day is going and wait for the email to come through. But the phone number usually comes through right away. So definitely encourage them to do that. They can also change their language preference. So if parents speak a different language or Spanish, they can change it, and then their FAFSA will be in Spanish, so it makes it easier. Then it's going to ask challenge questions. So when you drop this down, it asks a lot of different things. And kids that are like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, well, what is our mascot? And they're like, a bear. I'm like, are you going to remember that? Yeah. Okay, well, pick that one. They are so like not committal through their challenge questions. They're like, I don't know. I don't know what I would put. I'm like, let's do this. And then take a picture of it. I'll show all of them, and you can take a picture and just remember where you saved it. But for challenge questions, they're not case sensitive. Then it's just going to verify all of their information. They can edit it if something is wrong. And then it's going to go to the 2-step verification setup process. So they have to click on the mobile phone, and it's going to send them a code. And they do have to click on the email, and it's going to send them a code. Once they do that, they can use their username, their email address, or their phone number to log into any federal student aid websites. So it'll have, you can use that as your username. So let's see, hold on. Yes, okay. So this is some of the biggest news I've ever heard. It is real-time Social Security Administration matching. Are we shocked? Okay, so basically, you're sitting with a kid. How many of you remember this from last year? We sat with the kid, we did the FSA ID. We say, okay, in 1 to 3 days, you're going to get an email from Social Security Administration, and then you're going to come back and let me know. How many of them received the email? None of mine. So I'm like, okay, well, let's just log in and try. So it is real time. So you can bring a kid in, you can have them do their FSA ID. If it matches, it's going to tell you immediately. You can do the FAFSA and you can submit it all in one setting. That was my decision, but it was great news, right? So these are just some people around the nation that are like, heck yes, thank you so much for doing this. So have not tried it out, but I think it's going to be amazing. So we're hopeful. So contributors that do not have a Social Security number will have to do some extra steps to verify their identity. When they set up that FSA ID, they need to make sure that they are very particular in the way that they list their address. So if it is the street and they spell out street, it needs to be the same in their FSA ID as it is in their FAFSA. So making sure you talk about it at that point, because it can create some disconnect if they don't do it. Make sure all of the phone number and everything is matching. The system will try to verify their identity through TransUnion. I think I only had one last year that actually pulled up TransUnion, but I think as we went throughout the year, it happened more and more, like it was working. If they do not have any sort of record with federal government, TransUnion will not pull up, and then it will send them an email with a case number that they have to do the attestation and verification process, which is the next screen. So this part is when they bring the TransUnion up, it's those questions like, which of these addresses did you live in? Which of these mortgages did you have? Which of these, car loans did you have? Those type of things. So that make sure they're not guessing on that either. They need to know or not know, okay? Then if they can't validate through TransUnion, this is the attestation and validation form. They will get an email from Federal Student Aid with a case number and this form. One tip I can give you is that when they are doing this, they don't just reply to that email with the form filled out. They actually have to send it to a separate email address. So I had a student that was going through and she couldn't figure out why they weren't receiving it, why it wasn't working, and I found out she had just replied to the email that she got her form from, and that's not what they need to do. They need to actually submit it to the ID verification at ed.gov. But on the form, it'll ask for their case number, and that comes in the email. So these forms exist out there, like you could get them today, but we can't really do anything with them until they go through the process of trying to set up that FSA ID and get that case number. Okay. And then they will give a list of, sorry, I forgot this, of identification that they can use. So they'll have to submit the form and a couple forms of identification. So it is on the back of that attestation form. If you want to, you can Google the attestation and validation form, and you can kind of get a preview of what those look like. Okay. So if a user forgets their username or password, they can have a secure code sent to their phone, they can have a secure code emailed to them, or they can answer their challenge questions. I really caution against using challenge questions because you have to wait 30 minutes to use them, and that's a lot of small talk people. I might go to class and come back because I don't know what to talk to you about. So I really try the other two, and if they cannot get those, then we can do that. Also, I want to mention that the chat feature on the Federal Student Aid website is my best friend. I know I'm up here and I act like an expert, but I use that chat feature probably once a week with kids. When things aren't working, when things are, like let's say that none of these are working, we chat them and they ask different questions, and then they can sometimes give us access to the account. Or let's say that a parent did the process, didn't have a social, did the process and didn't get the email with the case number. So we were able to go through the chat and have them help. I know last year, maybe 2 years ago, we were waiting on chat for hours or waiting on the phone call for hours, and they are saying that their wait time is down. They've staffed up a lot. The process has gotten easier, and so they're promising to be more available to us. So I'm not going to promise that to you, but that's what they said. So, but it is definitely, I like the chat because you can print out a transcript of what they said. So if anybody is asking, why did you do something the way you did it on there, I print it out and hand it to the parent and say, if anybody questions it, you have this. So FAFSA line by line, we're going to get into the actual form. How many of you have ever used the FAFSA prototype? The demo site? Good. If you have not, it's your best friend, people. It is a live FAFSA that you can go and put in any random information and you can try it out. So there's always that question of who's my parent, or what do I do on the what am I trying to say, investments line, or what do I do this, or why are they asking about disability? I just log into the prototype, put in some random information, get to the question, and see how it's being asked. So this is available to any of you at any time. The password is prototype 2627, and it is a huge tool. It's rather than doing a FAFSA for one of my kids over and over and over again, I do it for just in the general thing. And there's different scenarios. So there's like if they're a dependent student, or if they're an independent student, or if they're, I can't remember what some of the other ones are, but there's a lot of different scenarios in there that you can use. Okay? So limits of the prototype, there are some weird things, like when you go and you put New Mexico and Albuquerque, the only high school that shows up is Desert Ridge Middle School. I don't know why they picked that one. But so some of it's not going to show up exactly as it does, but just go with it. There are also some of the little question icons were missing last year. So like if you are in the real FAFSA, you can click the question icon next to any question and it'll pop up with instructions. Some of those weren't loaded into the prototype. So it's just a way for you to get in there. It does not adjust to the size of your browser, so sometimes if you're on a phone or on a computer, it looks a little wonky, but just expanded a little bit and it was working for me. So, student application. The landing page now looks like this. There's something new, so it says start new FAFSA 2627. Like I said, it's open. You can edit a FAFSA, or you can accept an invitation. So we're going to talk about what that means in a little bit, because there's going to change to them inviting contributors. But just know that they now have 3 options of what they want to do. On here also, let me see where it is. It's usually up in here, there's a help thing, and that's how I get to the FAFSA chat. So if you needed that, I'll see if it's on any of my other screenshots. The dependent student login, they're just going to put in either their email address, their phone number, or their username, and then they're going to put that password that they set up. If they forget any of them at any time, they can click Forgot Password. Then either the parent or the student can start the FAFSA now. They are recommending that the student actually starts it, but if you have the parent in front of you, you can do that. Then also, if they didn't get, or if they received an invitation code, which we're going to talk about in a second, they can put that on there as well. So we will, I'm like baiting you, just wait for it, right? So when you start the form, because we logged in with our FAFSA ID, it's going to pre-populate all of this information. So their name, their birthday, it's going to only give the last 4 of the social, email address, and phone number. Those things you cannot change here. If something's wrong, you have to go back out and go to their FAFSA ID settings and change it there. It'll have state of legal residence, it'll have state of residence. They have taken out the word legal. I guess I never really thought about that, but it was an issue because students were like, well, I'm not a legal resident, what do I do? And so it is just now state of residence, okay? So put the state in. This one was the hardest question ever last year. Who agrees? The date the student became a resident. Yes. Were you born here? Yes. It's your birthday. So, I don't know why it was hard. They do have some wording here. If the student was born here and has not moved out of the state since into their birth date. So it used to say, have you lived here for 5 years? Yes, you're good. No, put the date that you moved here. But they went to this a few years ago, and I don't know why. It's just comical how hard it is. So provided consent. This was new, I think, 2 years ago, where they are upfront providing consent to pull their information from the IRS. So it used to be how we had to go through the IRS data retrieval tool. That no longer exists. It's done all up front. So the student can read through these pages. The green box actually gives them a summary of what it all says. And it is basically that they're going to go out to the IRS and see if they have any information that they can pull in. If the student didn't file taxes, that's okay. It's still going to go out and look. If the parent didn't file taxes, again. So it's going to do that. And then live, if they say that they decline consent, the student will not be eligible for federal student aid. So it gives them a warning. They can provide consent there, or they can decline. They can fill out the application, but really nothing is going to happen with it because it cannot be used to award federal student aid. Okay? Dependency. So if any of the following criteria apply, the student is considered independent. So a lot of our seniors will say, well, my mom's not gonna, I have to get out of the house when I'm 18, they're not gonna provide any money, why do I have to have them contribute to my FAFSA? They are a dependent student in the federal student government's eyes until they're 24 years old, married, pursuing a master's or doctorate degree, have children that they provide more than half the support for. If they've been in foster care since they turned 13, if they're an emancipated minor, currently or was under legal guardianship, homeless or self-supporting, at risk of being homeless, or veteran or serving on active duty. So for me, these questions are kind of like those red flags that I listen for. If I have a student say, well, I don't know that I can provide my parent information, I say, okay, well, who do you live with? And they say, grandma. Okay, you gotta ask some follow-up questions. Does grandma have legal guardianship of you? No, I live with grandma. Okay, there's another pathway there, but no, yes, she does have legal guardianship. I live with my auntie, I live with my neighbor, whatever. If they've been deemed by the court to be under legal guardianship, that person has no financial responsibility for that student after they turn 18, so they are considered an independent student. So they will go through this process, answer these questions, and it will turn them into provisionally independent, and they'll have to provide that documentation to our financial aid directors. But just keep your eye out for anything like this. If it is a barrier, if there is unique circumstances, it's always great to reach out to our financial aid directors to see, what do I do with this one? Our financial aid partners at the universities are amazing. Even if that student's not going to that university, they will help us understand what to do. So as soon as you click I accept or I agree, it's importing your information, and then hopefully we're all going to get this screen. And this really didn't take that long. It takes a few seconds, I feel like, when we're sitting there, and it'll say success. If it says, sorry, your data cannot be returned, select continue, and it's just going to have them manually enter the information, okay? So it's back to those days where we have to look at the the tax return on line 34, all of that. So just that.
So again, we're talking about these questions are determining dependency. So this asks the marital status. Again, most of our high school seniors are single. I'm a high school counselor, so a lot of what I'm going to talk about is high school, but you can definitely see what's going to happen if you're working with those college students who are married or remarried or separated or anything like that. So we're going to just go through a single high school student. It's going to ask what their college and career plans are. So are they entering as a first-year student, second-year undergraduate, or with a master's or doctorate? Even if they had dual credit, they are entering as a first-year student. This is their first year in high school. Oh, let me back up. There were a few questions on the form. One of them was, are you going to share these slides? And Ruben will post them on the NMEAF website in a few days. The rest of the questions I think that you guys had, we are going to address in a little bit. So, and then one question was, what happens if a parent sets up 2 FSA IDs? I would call Federal Student Aid and have them help you figure out how to navigate that one. So, okay, back to here. Then, and when the student begins, will they already have a bachelor's degree? The answer should be no for our first-time students. These are those personal circumstance questions that are seeing if they have any of the unique situations. So again, are you active duty? Are you a veteran? Do you have any children that are dependent on you? Have you been an orphan, ward of the court, in foster care, legally emancipated minor, or under legal guardianship of anybody other than your parents? Okay. Any of those, if you click yes, they will become a provisionally independent student. If they click no, then it's going to ask about it'll ask parent information. The next page is about student homelessness. At any time after July 1st, was a student unaccompanied or either homeless or self-supporting or at risk of being homeless? This is where those questions of, well, I'm kind of couch surfing on my friend's couch, or we don't have a stable living environment, or we're living in a hotel, we're doing those type of things. Anytime that comes up, there are McKinney-Vento programs in our districts that we need to connect these students with. If they deem them eligible for McKinney-Vento, they can say yes to this question, and they are considered an independent student. So they do not have to provide parental information. They will be eligible for full Pell Grant, full financial aid. And so these students that are in the hardest of times can see hope, can see light, right? They're like, what do you mean I can get money to go to school? I don't even really have a lot of money to live on. I'm like, there's going to be money for you. You're going to have your lottery and opportunity. You're going to have your Pell Grant. You're going to have other grants. There's opportunities available for you. But it's listening and hearing those questions. If they're like, no, I can't get you parent information, ask. Okay, why not? Who do you live with? Tell me more about this. That your aunts, your grandmas, any of those people are never going to be your parents for the federal financial aid program unless they have legally adopted them. Anything else like that, then there are usually other situations that we need to go through. So if you have a student that is qualified for McKinney-Vento, or if you know that there are other situations, they can say yes. It will ask them, do any of these determine them? So can a director of an emergency shelter give them a letter? Does the student have the district liaison, director, designee of a program supported by federal TRIO or grant, Gear Up, or a financial aid administrator? So unique situations, we need to do more of that intentional handoffs. So we find that director at UNM or director at CNM and say, hey, I've got this really unique situation. Can you help me, and can I tag you into this conversation so we can help this student, okay? The unaccompanied, it'll ask again about the homelessness question, but then it explains the provisionally independent. What that is they're going to fill out the FAFSA as an independent student, no parent information provided, but they have to provide documentation or work with the financial aid office to be able to verify that, so that they can become fully independent. Because if they don't verify it, then it just goes into that they only get like that unsubsidized loan unless they go back and do provide that parent information, okay? It will also ask if any unusual circumstances happen. This one is left home due to an abusive or threatening environment, or abandoned or estranged by parents, have refugee or asylee status, a victim of human trafficking, are incarcerated or their parents are incarcerated, and contact with that parent would pose a risk to the student, or are otherwise unable to contact or locate the parent. Again, it will take more information to the financial aid office to confirm this, but if any of those do apply, they can say yes, and it'll be provisionally independent as well. So we're just gonna say no, and then we get to this question, which I think was the second hardest question. It used to say, would you like to apply for an unsubsidized loan? They've changed the wording a little bit, and students are like, yes, I want a loan, and they click yes, and then there's no parent information, and all they're eligible for is an unsubsidized loan. So it is defaulting to yes. I'm sorry, they would say no. No, it was different, right? Am I going crazy? It was different last year. Okay, let's read this question together. So are the students' parents refusing to provide their information on the FAFSA? If they say yes, then yes. If they say yes, then they're only eligible for unsubsidized. It's going to default to no. I think the screenshot I took was just when I was clicking through it. So it's going to default to no because most of our parents will provide information and then they need that to be able to do it. So just be careful with that question. Read it a couple of times like I have to. So if they say yes, it's going to bring this up that's a warning, like, are you sure you're going to do this? Because you're only eligible for unsubsidized. I already skipped and talked about provisionally independent. So now it says you are a dependent student. We've gone through that process, and now they're going to ask some more demographics. It is asking about their sex. There's no more, I prefer not to answer. There's no more bisexual. There's no more anything other than male and female. It is a required question, but it is not reported to anywhere. So just tell students to pick which one they want. It's not going to affect eligibility. It's not going to be used in any calculations, and it's not going to be shared with the students or the school that they apply to. So they have to answer male or female. Then the race questions, these are intense. This is also one that annoys me. You click I'm Asian and it brings up another box, and you click something else and it brings up another box. So half of them don't know. So just tell them to list what they can or want to. There's also a prefer not to answer. I sometimes don't make them go through all of the little drop-down boxes. Just give them the basics, and it's only for research purposes. The students then asked about their citizenship. Are they a U.S. citizen, eligible non-citizen, or neither a citizen or eligible non-citizen? It'll bring up help things. So there's usually a question mark here that you can pop up, or you can use this little eye up here now that will give you information if they're not a true U.S. citizen or national, okay? And again, this is the student application, so they should all be eligible to apply for aid if they have that Social Security number or are the eligible non-citizen. So then parent education status, this is really just trying to figure out, there are supports for our first-gen students. There's TRIO programs, there's EOP programs, there's lots of different programs, so this question helps. So sometimes when I'm working with a kid, they might be embarrassed to say no, and this is probably just my school's problem, but they might be embarrassed to say no, and I'm like, no, it's a great thing to say no, because they're going to identify you and they're going to help you. There are programs they can provide extra funding, they can provide tutoring, they can provide mentors to help you figure out like what classes and how to get around campus and all of those things, because these students don't have that familial support to be able to guide them through how college works. So that is just one of those questions. Then it asks if was a parent killed in the line of duty. A few years ago, they went away from just asking about active duty, and now they are looking at if they're performing official duties as a public safety officer. So that can include firefighters, law enforcement, and emergency service workers. So there's extra funding available if any of that happened to a student. It will ask about their high school completion status. By the time they start college, they will have a high school diploma. Okay, so high school diploma. They can, again, do homeschool or GED, but don't put none of the above. Okay, high school diploma. It'll ask where they went to school. So this is what we use to figure out who's doing the best in the state and hopefully get money from NMEAF if you have the best in the state. So make sure that they're listing their high school correctly. So state, city, and then their high school will pop up. Again, on the prototype, this is where Desert Ridge Middle School shows up. So it's not fully live, but when you come here, all of yours should be there. It'll pop up the window and you confirm that that's the right college. And then it confirms it yet again. Then it gets into finances. So at the top here, you can see where we're at. So did the student file a 24 IRS 1040? These questions are being asked because in the demo, it didn't find it, right? It didn't find it through the IRS retrieval at the beginning. So it's going to ask us every question here. Does that make sense? So you might not see all of these questions when you're working on a FAFSA. It'll ask what your tax filing status was, single for most of these, how much did you earn from work? And then these are the questions that hopefully you will not see much because it's just going to pull it all in from the federal, from the IRS. So the questions might be, what are untaxed portions of IRA, untaxed portions of pension, adjusted gross income, income tax paid, earned income credit, self-employment, let's see, education credits, if they filed a schedule A, B, C, D, A, B, you can see it all. It's a hot mess. Every one of these, it tells you what line to look at, okay? So I just tell people, like, bring your taxes in. Most likely we're not gonna need it, but if we do, then I can go to line 27 and enter that in there. But again, there were a lot of times last year I never saw any of these questions because that right at the beginning when we did consent and it pulled it from IRS, it already pulled all of it, okay? Then student assets. So this is a question that you will see for every student. The help text has been updated, so that's the little I's or question marks next to it. So it will ask the current total of cash, savings, and checking. If today is payday, we are not putting what's in our bank account today. We're putting what's in our bank account at the end of the month. So after all your bills are paid, how much do you have left over and carry over? For my students, I tell them I'm proud of them if it's not a negative number. They look at me, I'm like, please tell me it's not negative. And then the net worth of investments, including real estate. So I actually had a parent that has had 3 kids go through my school come up and talk to me last month. And he's like, I just don't understand why I have to put my 401k on my FAFSA. And I'm like, you don't. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you don't. I'm like, why have you not listened to me for the other 3 kids? So the investments, it does not include your retirement plans. So I always pull that up and I'm like, do you have any of these things? It does not include the house that they live in. It would include a rental property, but it's the net worth of that rental property. So what they owe versus what it's worth, what's the net difference? There are other things that it includes if the student or parent has a 529 plan. This might be on my next page. It used to be you had to list the value of all 529 plans in the household. You don't have to do that anymore. It's just for that one student. So I open that and let them read it and let them decide what they have and let them decide what number to put in there. The net worth of businesses and farms got a little out of sorts last year. It used to be you didn't have to report the value of a business or farm if it had less than 100 employees. Last year they took that away. This year it's back, okay? So enter the net worth of the students' businesses, and this is the student page, but it's going to be on the parent one also. Students' businesses or income-producing farms, net worth is the value of the business and minus any debts owed. Do not include family business with 100 or fewer full-time employees or farms where the family resides or a commercial fishing business and related expenses. Okay, so new this year, adding that back in so it's not these small businesses having to report things. Okay. Next, we're on to our colleges and career schools. So in October, our students probably have no idea where they're going. Some of them do, but mine don't. They have a list of 20. You can list up to 20 colleges on the FAFSA in your first go-around. So on here, they're just asking, where do you want us to send your information? Some of my students are like, but I haven't been accepted yet, or I haven't even applied yet. That's fine. Put it out there. It's going to hang out in the cyberspace. And then when you do apply, they're going to be able to pull it down and generate that award letter for you. So you can do all of this at the same time. We don't have to wait till we're accepted to do the FAFSA. So they can list any colleges that they're considering. So you start with the state, you list the city, find the school, and then select it over on the side here. Then it'll give them the list. Again, you can do up to 20. Let's say you got a kid that has more than 20. You can, once the FAFSA is processed, come back in, delete one of these schools and add another one. It will not take the information away from the one you deleted, but it will add it to the other one. So 21 schools will get their information. Let's see. There is a part where it talks about like moving them and ranking them. Some states say you have to list a college as number one to get some sort of state aid. Our state doesn't do that. So you don't have to worry about ranking or anything like that. So just list the schools in any order that's there. Then we're on one of our last pages here. So it used to be the contributor kind of hit in the middle of the application. It's now at the end. So you're going to click continue here. But if you want to see who counts as a parent on the FAFSA form, that is a great link. You can also Google ahead of time parent or FAFSA parent wizard, and it will walk you through a wizard of, how many of you have gotten the question of who's my parent? I get it all the time. I'm like, okay, let's start again. And so I'm like, okay, are your parents married? Yes. Okay, one of them has to be a contributor. Are parents divorced? Yes. So this tool will walk them through who has to provide information on their FAFSA. So this is kind of what you'll see. So when we hit I'm taking you through this. When you click on who counts as parents, it's just going to say, give us first name and second name. Or this student only has one legal parent. And it's going to say, are mom and dad married to each other? No. Do mom and dad live together? No. Which parent provided more financial support over the last 12 months? Mom. Is mom remarried? No. Okay, so then we only provide information for mom. If parents are married, then we will provide information for mom and dad, but only one parent needs to put information in if they file jointly. If they're divorced, but mom and dad live together, they're considered as married. We would have to provide information for both parents, and most likely both parents would need to be a contributor because most likely they didn't file jointly. So they would each have to bring in and come in and provide consent and be a contributor. So again, let's say mom and dad are not married, mom and dad do not live together, but mom is remarried, then it's going to be mom and stepdad's family income, okay? So it walks you through, it'll tell you inside the FAFSA who needs to contribute and all of that. But you can also pop into that parent wizard at any time to do a scenario with the kid to ask them those leading questions. So then you're going to get to this page that says invite your parent. I need you all just to hold on. Invite my parent contributor. Email address. Send invite. You do not have to have their full name. You do not have to have their birthday. You do not have to have their social security number. You do not have to have all that information that kids didn't know. You just need an email address. Yay! And it doesn't even have to be the email address that they used to set up their FSA ID. It's just some email address. It's going to be a game changer. Because how many of you had to stop FAFSAs at this point because we didn't know their social security number, we didn't know their birthday, we didn't know their legal name, or they guessed at it and nothing ever happened. So email address, it sends the invite. It'll ask again just to confirm the email and you send the invite. Then it's going to bring up a page to confirm we sent the invite to this. I would have the kid write this down or take a picture of it. They're also going to get a copy of it via email and they can access it through the form, but you know how good they are about finding a picture from 2 years ago that mom sent them with their social security number on it. They're good at it. So having them just capture that number because we will need it soon, okay? So that happens. And guess what? We're done with the application. Okay. We started with our FSA ID. They did it immediately, got immediate match. We did the consent. We went through and put in our demographic information. I'm going to go back. We did demographic. We did a little bit of financials. We put our colleges. We invited our contributor, and now we can sign it. I don't think it's going to take that long, right? I think it's going to, if our internet at school works. Let's put that disclaimer too. So it'll give them their summary so they can click through each one and confirm. It'll show the invite that was sent and they click continue. If they start an application and do not finish it, it will be deleted after 45 days. So I've had kids come in, they're like, I know I started this. And I'm like, yeah, how long ago? And they're like, oh, it was in October and now it's May. Yeah, they deleted it. So make sure that you get in there and keep working on it if they stop for some reason. So then it gives you a summary of everything. They scroll down and read through all of the stuff, and then they click sign. This does not have sign and submit because we are still waiting for another piece of the puzzle. We're still waiting for the contributor information. So if the contributor has already done their part, this will turn to sign and submit. If they don't, when the parent gets done with their part, theirs will say sign and submit, okay? But we can finish the student here. It'll tell them pending submission, so it's not final yet, and we're waiting on that person to go, okay? So now we're gonna switch over to the parent. This isn't a view that you'll see in the FAFSA form, but this is what their email will look like. So we sent it to the email, and they said, hey, Alex has started a FAFSA and they would like your help with it. Accept invitation. When they accept that invitation, it's gonna automatically populate that code. If they didn't get the email, I'll show you kind of where you can go for that. The parent is taken from their email to a login page. This is where if they've already set up their FSA ID, they log in with their FSA ID. If they have not set one up, they can say create an account, set it up, and continue on from there. So they do not have to have an account early. The kid can invite them even if they don't have an account. It'll ask them for that access code. So let's say they didn't get the email. Remember that first page I showed you where it says start a 26-27 FAFSA, continue a 2026 or 26-27 FAFSA, or accept an invitation? You can just click accept an invitation and you can type in your code. So you do not have to have the email to follow through with it. If the kid has the code, then you can continue on here. By accepting this invitation, you agree to share information. The parent identity, so again, same thing. Can't change those unless you log back into your FSA ID and do it there. Same thing, they come down and approve to have the IRS pull in their information. It's either securely done or not securely done. Demographics, it'll ask them, are you married, remarried, separated, divorced? Parent's state of legal residence, again, were you born here? They usually get it a little better than kids. And then parent finances. So if the IRS brought in that information, a lot of information isn't going to be needed. If it did not, it's going to ask those questions like I showed you on the students, like line 27, line whatever. This page may or may not show up, and it is basically looking for who has received like earned income credit, FHA, Medicaid, all of those like SNAP benefits. If they're looking at the income that's being put in and it's on the lower end, they'll ask these questions. I think if it's on the higher end, you won't typically see them. So don't be afraid if you don't see some of them. The one thing I want to point out is the free or reduced lunch. Our kids get free lunch, but that does not mean that they qualify based on income. So they need to qualify based on income if they're going to say yes to free lunches there. Again, did they file taxes? Did they file jointly? So again, these might come up. And I forgot to mention, these are the only steps for the parent. So we've got demographics, financials, and signatures. So again, really quick, okay? And really quick, especially if they pull it in. Then it's going to ask you about family size. So it says, is the family size different from the number of individuals claimed on the 24 tax return? And I forgot to mention that we are using the 2024 tax return. Years ago, we went to prior year. So if you think about when is this kid going to start college, it's 26, and we're going to subtract 2 years from that. So we're using 24 taxes, okay? Taxes are already filed, should be in the system, should be able to pull very quickly. So is the family size different? If you say yes, it'll bring up this box and you can see and you can add more people. So the parent family size, it should be the student, should be the parent, and then any other children that they provide more than half the support for. Then it'll ask how many children will be in college. This question makes me mad. I look at people. It used to be if you had 2 kids in college, they would cut the family contribution in half because they don't expect you to contribute twice that for 2 kids. Now it's not part of the funding decision, and it can go to the colleges, but sometimes they can't do anything with it. So if you have more than 2 kids in college, reach out to the financial aid office and see if there's any adjustment that they can make. I don't even know why they ask the question anymore. This is just another view if your taxes didn't get pulled in. So the same kind of things. If you have a parent that they are married but they filed jointly, each parent is going to have to accept an invitation to come in and contribute to the FAFSA because we have to get the tax information from each one of them. If parents are married, filing jointly, only one of them needs to do it. So only one needs an FSA ID, only one needs to come in and contribute, okay? It will ask about child support received, and then it will ask about parent assets. Again, cash savings and checking left over at the end of the month, net worth of investments, and net worth of businesses and farms. If there is a married filing jointly, it will ask only for that other parent's birth date. So again, how many parents didn't know their spouse's Social Security number or anything like that? I mean, I give dads a hard time if they don't know mom's birthdays. So just, it's always a joke for me. And then I really give moms a hard time if they don't know birthdays, but that's all the information they need to know on their spouse to finish up the application if they're doing jointly. And that's it. So it's really just the demographics, a little bit of financials, and then the spouse information. They confirm it all here, they go through and sign and agree, and then theirs will most likely at the bottom here say sign and submit. They do that and it's all done, okay? There are different views based on who submits it and whose application we're in. So the top one, we did a submission for Raya as a parent, and it's just gonna show completion date. If I submit it based on Raya, or I go in and look at Raya, it's actually gonna give me that an estimated SAI, it's gonna give me a release number, it's gonna give me a lot more information because it's actually Raya's application. So just know that that's gonna be there, and they all should get an email. Raya should get an email once it's submitted with this information saying congratulations. Let's see, other scenarios, the independent students will only complete student succession but may need to invite their spouse if they are married. Provisionally independent students will only complete the student section. Parents can start the form and invite the student. It works, sometimes that works when the invitation does not work. It should be a lot better this year because we don't have to have the invitation. We can just do the invite code. Paper FAFSAs are definitely available, but the online is recommended. And prior to it being submitted, you can delete the whole application and start again, okay? Okay, FAFSA submission summary. After the student submits their FAFSA, they should be able to come in and view their summary. It'll have eligibility overview, FAFSA form answers, school information, and next steps. I always watch if I'm logging in with the kid, if this is like a yellow or something like that, then there's an error with it and we need to look at it and finish it. If a student needs a copy of their summary for a scholarship or something like that, please, you can do that on the FAFSA submission summary site. Okay. On the summary under eligibility overview, that's where you'll see if they're eligible for Pell Grant, if there's direct loans, work study, those type of things. They will all give them an initial estimate, and then if they need to make a correction, they can do so here. The Student Aid Index replaced the estimated family contribution a few years ago. So it is the number that they get from filling out their FAFSA. And it's used to calculate, that's the number that goes to the schools. The schools use that to subtract from their cost of attendance, and then that determines what their financial need is. The SAI can go negative, and that just says they should be eligible for the maximum amount of aid that's out there. But it is a little different. It's a little harder to explain, but that's kind of the gist of what the SAI is. The form answers, they can see everything. So if they're like, I think I put something in wrong, you can check that. And if we need to make a correction again on that slide, you can. Then under school information, it can show them the schools. If they need to add another school, there is an option within the FAFSA submission summary to add another school in there. But it also gives them the graduate rate, retention rate, transfer, all of that. And then on next steps, so this just talks about correct any errors, your form answers, and understand your tax benefits, all kinds of things there. This is really the only time you need to go to next steps is typically if there's an error on it and you need to figure out what to do next, okay? So that is the FAFSA.